Hey guys, how are we doing today? This is Wally again with Best Web Hosting for WordPress.net. And in today's video review, we're going to be looking at Accuwebhosting. Is Accuwebhosting good for you or not? We're going to be covering that in this review, helping you guys to see if they're an ideal solution to help you to create a website online. But if you guys are new here to this channel for Best Web Hosting for WordPress.net, hit the subscribe button right below, guys, along with the bell. And that way, any future videos that I put up, you guys will be sure to receive them. Periodically on this channel, I'll upload tutorials that'll teach beginners step by step how to create WordPress websites and blogs step by step without missing any steps. So if that's something that you guys are interested in learning more about, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and that way you guys will catch me on the following videos. So in this AccuWeb hosting review, I'm going to be going over the company, a little bit of their background. We're going to talk about the prices of their packages, the different packages that they have. And hopefully with that, you guys will see if they're really for you or not. I also wanted to talk about two other important areas, which are uptime performance as well as customer support. You never know if you may have any issues, with AccuWeb hosting. How is it that the customer service works? Are they responsive? How are they with resolving issues? These are some really important areas, guys, that I always look at before getting started with any web hosting provider online to test and create, websites online. Okay, so let's get started. You'll notice that with AccuWeb hosting, they have different types of packages that you can select from. There's a cloud-based hosting. There's WordPress that has, lots of bells and whistles, with it. There's VPS if you want your very own personal server with your own space. There's reseller hosting, which is ideal for people who want to start their very own web hosting business from home, maybe to outsource resources to people for profit. There is dedicated, which is typically for higher volume traffic websites such as enterprises, corporations, and the like. If you are a beginner online trying to create your very first website, you don't need dedicated hosting, you don't need reseller hosting, nor VPS hosting, or cloud or WordPress. I just recommend that beginners get started with what's called their shared web hosting. The reason you want to do that is because shared web hosting across the board with any web hosting provider, including AccuWeb hosting and their competitors, is typically the cheapest that you can get started with. Now, something that you should know off back that works with any web hosting provider out there, including AccuWeb hosting, is that when you select or use their shared web hosting itself, you're going to be sharing a portion of a server along with thousands of other people with it. The benefit for you on the front end is that one is cheap to do it. Most web hosting providers across the board, in comparison to AccuWeb, charge roughly about $5 or less per month for the web hosting itself, for shared hosting. The downside of going with a shared, web hosting plan itself is that the speeds itself might be a little bit slower. And again, you're sharing space on one server. I kind of like to think about it as a person that is sharing like an apartment complex. When you live in a complex and somebody lives above you, below you, on the left and the right, you hear everything that goes on, all the noise. If they're jumping up and down, any screaming, you hear it, right? And the same is true with shared web hosting. It's cheap, right? Just like living in an apartment. But the downside is that if somebody is using too much in the way of resources, it takes away from you. So that's something to consider, guys, that I always mention to people that are wanting to start their very first website online, is that it's extremely important that you know what you're getting before you get started, with a web hosting provider. Does that make sense? I hope so. So with AccuWeb hosting's plans itself, they do have shared, as I mentioned before, which I recommend for beginners. And as you grow with your website, with the content online, and you start to get more web traffic, month after month, and of course you can upscale very easily and just, jump into maybe VPS, down the road. Okay. But for right now, just stick with their shared web hosting, because again, it's really cheap to get started with. And it's probably better for you as a beginner. You notice the plans that they have. There are three that you can select from. There's the personal, small business, and the enterprise. What I like about AccuWeb hosting plans is that across the board, they allow you to create unlimited websites across the board, which is very unique because many competitors of AccuWeb hosting online right now, be it SiteGround, Bluehost, HostGator, HostMods, or any EIG-owned companies that are out there, and even when you look at some managed platforms out there like WPX, all of these companies typically only allow you to create unlimited websites on their second and third tiers. Typically on the first tier, which is like the beginner or startup plans, they don't allow that. Okay. And so that's something very unique that I think is great about AccuWeb hosting, is that they allow you to do that across the board. You'll notice that these promo rates that they have here start from $3.09 per month. The small business plan itself is $5.09, and the enterprise, which is for larger, websites with more traffic, starts at $9.99 per month. You notice that guys, that they do give you a really nice share of resources itself. On the first tier, you get 10 gigabytes pure SSD storage. On the second tier with the small business plan, you get 30, and with the enterprise, you're getting 50. What's really cool about AccuWeb hosting that I think is that they do give you email hosting itself, so you can create a large amount of email hosting accounts, which is very odd with many of their competitors. A lot of web hosting providers don't give you the capability to create email accounts. Sometimes you have to outsource it and get it from another provider. It may be like interlink it with your web hosting provider, their platform that they supply you. But with AccuWeb hosting, they actually give you email accounts that you can set up, for your business. On the first tier, you get 150. The small business, you get 500 email accounts, and the third tier, 1,000, which is amazing. Another great thing that I like about AccuWeb hosting is that they give you free SSL certificates across the board, which is great, being that Google in 2018 made a very important announcement about websites that do not have SSL certificates on them will, one, be marked unsecured and also rank lower in the search engine. So obviously AccuWeb hosting recognizes that, and they give you those SSL certificates across the board. Something that I really love, guys, that they give you as well is a dedicated IP address, which is very uncommon for most shared web hosting providers online. Most of them will require you to pay for it. It's something separate, being that, again, on a shared web hosting server itself, you're sharing, in most cases, the same IP address, which, again, could be problematic if a person is doing something that's not right, maybe spamming others, of course, of which could affect, your website performance as well. But with AccuWeb, they give you your very own dedicated IP address, which I really like that. And I think that makes for a good buy, in my opinion, as well. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee with a web hosting. That's pretty standard in this industry. Most of all web hosting providers out there offer 30-day money-back guarantee. So that's something that I wanted to mention in the event you guys feel that AccuWeb hosting is not for you. Something that I wanted to mention about their data centers is that they have data centers all around the world, in the US, Canada, France, Australia, Singapore, India, and even in the Netherlands. But something that you want to know that's different with AccuWeb hosting is that you can't select which server you want to use, which data center you want to use. Now, some web hosting providers do allow you to do that. For example, like I'm here in the United States, but if I want to create a website, like another blog or another website, for whatever reason, I could select, with the web hosting providers that I have used and that I'm currently using, I have the ability to select which data center I want to build that website off, if that makes sense. So you don't get that with AccuWeb hosting. I guess that's a good and a bad thing. Typically, you want your website to be hosted on a data center itself where your visitors are actually coming from, if that makes sense. So again, the downside of that is that if you're here in the US, automatically your website will be connected to the data centers here in the United States. If you live in Europe, You're going to be connected to likely the one in France, being that you're in Europe. If you're in India, then you're going to be connected to India. If you're in Asia, you're going to be connected to Singapore. So again, that's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing if and only if your audience itself is from that given area. If you're trying to target people in another country, but you physically are not in that country, then again, that could be a downside because one, your web traffic arriving to your website, it could contribute to slower page loads and just not that great of a user experience, if you will. And so I mentioned that in this AccuWeb hosting review, guys, because I want you to understand really the big picture. Yes, AccuWeb is a good web hosting provider, but you should know and understand that if you are not servicing people that are in your country. I hope that makes sense. If you don't understand that, then drop a comment right below, and I'll be sure to address that with you guys. So again, across the board, AccuWeb Hosting is a really great web hosting provider. They have really great customer support itself. It is a small, company itself, and I think one of the benefits of being small is that the customer service turnaround, with tickets and even phone base is a lot faster. When you get into a lot of EIG owned providers, and if you're wanting to migrate like from one of those providers, and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, where you could be on the phone for literally hours and your issue may not be resolved because the companies are so big, they have so many clients, and the customer service just goes kind of to the wayside. So that's something that that you can look forward to having really great, fast customer support with AccuWeb Hosting. And so I just wanted to highlight that with you guys today. So one thing that I wanted to talk about, guys, is uptime performance. I mentioned that on the onset of this video review that I wanted to go into uptime and why is it that it's extremely important to get started with a web hosting provider that has good uptime performance. Now, we talk about uptime because really it's just a percentage of how often your website is available online, if that makes sense. So right now, you guys are watching this video review, maybe on YouTube, maybe you're on my website at bestwebhostingforwordpress.net. Great, and you got it from Google. My website is up. You're on my website watching and reading, the information that's on my blog. I mentioned all of this, guys, because if your website is down, then it means that you're losing money. But if your website is up, then it means that you are making money online. And so how does AccuWeb uptime performance fare in comparison to their competition? It's extremely important to know how their uptime works. So, AccuWeb itself maintains an average of 99.9% across the board, an average of 99.9%, which equates more or less to about 10 hours of downtime, like on a weekly basis, if that makes sense. As you add like a 9 to it, of course that decreases it. But if you look at like any uptime calculator, you'll see that it breaks down to roughly about 10 hours of downtime, which for me is a lot of time. Because again, if you are, depending on the types of products that you guys are selling or wanting to promote, on your website, whether you're in insurance, you're in construction, you're an accountant, you're in network marketing, you're in whatever it is that you do, if your website is down for 10 hours, it means that your potential audience is not seeing your products, and thus you're losing money. And so I mentioned this in this AccuWeb review, guys, because I want you to understand that it's important to sign or partner with a web hosting provider that is reliable. So all web hosting providers have this. They all experience downtime. I think that downtime is not always a bad thing if it's planned, but if it's just sporadic here and there, your website is down, somebody clicks on it from Google, ultimately it will hurt and really plummet your SEO rankings itself. Somebody clicks on your website through Google and it says under maintenance or it's offline or whatever the issue is that it's not available, Google receives a signal. It's almost like sending a signal directly to Google that this website is not available. And of course, it just sinks. Your rankings just go down and down. So I want you guys to know up front what you're getting into before you get started with AccuWeb's hosting today. All right. So the customer service across the board is pretty good. I've been in tabs with one of their representatives just to find out more about their web hosting itself. Again, I'm not an affiliate of the company, so I don't make any money by doing this web hosting review for Accuwebhosting. But again, I just want you guys to understand what to really expect before you get started, right? Something else that I wanted to do with you guys before I let you go is take you over to a website called Trustpilot. Now, this is an external site itself that just gives you more intel about what people think about the web hosting services. Of course, me, I'm not a AccuWeb, affiliate. So I'm giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly, with this company. They do have a lot of positives, with the web hosting, but there are some things that you guys should consider and think about before getting started. For example, when you look at Trustpilot, it's an external website that's highly respected online that provides honest reviews from people just like me and you. And you'll see that based on the reviews that have been left on this website, that 25 reviews have been left by their clients. So they have a 3.7 rating out of 5. Now, of those, you'll see the breakdown that 60% say that AccuWeb hosting is excellent, 24% say it's great, 8% say it's poor, and another 8% say it's poor. And you look at comments just dropping down, and you'll see both positive and negative and in between comments about the web hosting provider itself. And so I show you these in this AccuWeb hosting review because I want you guys to, again, to have the big picture, honest, because sometimes you may see a video online, a video review online, and somebody's just pumping it up, but they're not giving you any of the negatives. And so I just want you guys to have the big picture, what to expect, in this actual, with this platform itself. That way you'll be able to create your website should you decide to get started, with it. And again, I'll drop this link right below. That way you guys can consult it and find out more information about AccuWeb. So guys, I've been online for several years, being able to create blogs with WordPress, different websites. If you guys want to know what I use to create websites online, check out the descriptions portion right below. I will leave some links right below. That way you guys can save up to 66% off of your web hosting today should you guys go with one of those providers below. But again, is AccuWeb hosting good? I think they are. I think they're a good provider to use for beginners. They do have free site migration. So if you want to move your website over to their platform, you can do that free. They'll move your site. So I think overall, they are a good web hosting provider. I mentioned, these complaints that are on the website with Trustpilot only because, all web hosting providers have complaints, and AccuWeb hosting is not the exception of that. So that's something that you should expect. Don't expect perfection from any web hosting provider because you will be let down. Okay, so that's just my honest AccuWeb hosting review. Let me know, guys, what you think about it right below. I really appreciate your feedback on it. Let me know if you currently use AccuWeb and what's been your experience. Let me know if you've used it in the past and what you think about it right now. Drop your comments right below, guys. And if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button right below. And that way, any future videos that I put up, guys, whether it be WordPress tutorials showing you guys step-by-step how to create websites online, you'll be sure to receive them. I hope you guys much success in your endeavors of creating your websites for 2020 going forward. Take care, guys, and have an amazing day. Be safe.